Boom, 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 boom. All right. Hey guys, Marcus here. My artist name is Morning Hawk. Today I'm going to be going over the mix breakdown for a song called Lift. The song is just about um, constantly elevating humanity and being good and being righteous and being civil to our brothers and sisters in our community, in our cities, in our towns, and hopefully in a wider area than that. So, right from the beginning, I started off with this kind of piano riff, and it's very chromatic in nature. What I mean by chromatic in nature is that the notes are very close together. So if you see me kind of play it here, and then it kind of walks down with this kind of A flat, G, G flat, and then F thing. So that's what's happening in the background here. I'll solo this part and it's kind of an octave up because I want it to sound kind of crystallized and ethereal here. And that kind of runs or provides kind of a constant thread throughout the whole piece. The next thing I added, and by the way, that's a piano from a company called Nori Piano. I'll see if I can put it on the screen here. It's Noire, Nori Piano. Really like their piano sounds. I think this one is a basic preset. I think I might have, nope, didn't even add any reverb. I didn't change any of the settings, so it's out of the straight out of the stuff there. And it's just a very nice sounding piano there. Moving on here. So what I added next was once again to kind of keep with this kind of uplifting, ethereal, celestial kind of sound, I added some bells to it. And I'll kind of do it on a little bit of a loop here, and I'll add in some of the other sounds as I'm going along. Yep. And then I added a little bit of a choir sound also. The choir sound is from Alchemy. Here, next, I have this kind of dry lo-fi snare drum happening. When it adds on to the beat, the only thing I'm really doing to add a little bit of space around that snare drum is I have this sort of minimal kit, is what they call it. It's from their sampler. It's just one of their basic sound packs, but it just adds a little bit of space and a little bit of ambience around it here. I'll let you hear it kind of by itself there. And I added that onto the snare drum sound. Once the actual beat kicks in, a few things kind of add on here. And I'll kind of go through these separately. So first of all, the sub. So basically what I have here is a, a basic kind of 808. I modulated it and changed it a little bit. I added some effects to it here. A lot of times you'll see that I'll add saturation from the beginning and some distortion. So I'm really pushing the saturation here. I have the compressor on. I do have the bass enhancer on here. Nothing's happening with the high pass, and all I'm doing here is attenuating the output to make sure I'm not overdriving and doing too much in my last stage of processing. The reason this is in a track stack, or what they call a track stack in Logic, the reason it's there is because I have some of the notes that are just straight, and then some of the notes I have them using portamento or glide or slides, right? So that woo woo, that kind of sound, I really like that. It's a very kind of a modern sound. So that's what's happening there. And you can see how it's split up. Cool. So that's the actual sub sound. The kick sound here, um, let me get out of this. So the kick sound, I like it because it just has a lot of punch to it. Cool. And then it also has this kind of um, upper end frequency on that same one. I guess I just never split it up on that particular channel. Oh, it is split up. It's kind of like a multi-output kit type of situation. So that's what's happening there. Um, so that's my kick. Notice that I didn't really do, I turned off all of these effects because this was probably just like some sort of preset type thing. And then the only thing I really kept was the equalizer. And with the equalizer, I'm just taking off some of the very lows and I'm pushing up a little bit, almost like a resonant filter around the bottom, like right after I cut off. So I'll kind of play a little bit of the hi-hats here. I believe this is the hi-hats. Yeah, so it's very reminiscent of kind of the trap kind of hi-hats, the mid to late 2000s hi-hats that came about. The first time I really noticed it, it was a song called "How You Do That," "How You Do That There," and I guess it was a song produced by Master P. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it was by a group called True, TRU. And in the last kind of chorus verse type thing they had these kind of very fast those kind of hi-hats coming in. It was just a different type of level of what I had heard before. I'm pretty sure this was maybe the early 2000s. So I really like that sound. And even up into this day, I very much so identify with that and energy, right? So here, I wanted to have it not so much overbearing. So it's pretty turned down in the mix. But then number two, it's not the kind of high and sparkly sort of hi-hat that's happening in some other kind of productions. I left the ethereal sounds and a lot of the upper frequencies to other instruments here. So that's why it's not, I guess, crazy piercing. And I'll go ahead and sort of turn on the whole mix right around this section. See you round town with a frown when I pass by. I said, hey, you said, bye, with the really sad eyes. I thought you were there on that stage. I was like, okay. Turned out it was more than a very, very bad. Cool, cool, cool. Now, right before that, I have just a little bit of a dropout and a riff. Smothered and covered. Cool. Most of the time when I'm actually writing songs, what ends up happening is I'll have my basic beat that just kind of trucks along and I'll go through and I'll start taking parts out. So notice I took all of these things out. I took parts out here. And then my very last stage, what I'll end up doing is I'll add effects and I'll add sort of parts back into what's happening. So that's what's happening here. I took out this sort of gap to provide a little bit of space, a little bit of open air before I like bring it back in with this dense mix. So that's what's providing a little bit of that space and energy. And then of course I have sound effects. I really like, I guess, some of the effects and drops that they use within the EDM genres. I really like Foley, which is kind of a cinematic term. It comes from the movies, like how people do the footsteps and people are hitting cabbages and slapping doors and all this other kind of stuff, like sound effects for actual movie productions. I like that kind of stuff. So it's kind of buried in a lot of my productions that you'll see out. So what's happening here is I have a little gun, I have a sword, and I have this kind of sweeping sound. So I'll kind of play that here. Cool. And that just adds to me a little bit of ear candy on top of the that kind of thing. Cool. And then that helps me just push into this next section. Lovers, we all stuck with each other, smothered and covered. Yeah. So that's what's happening there. Let's talk about the vocals here, because really, as far as the actual presentation of all of the instruments and things, all of that is pretty much simple. You know, there's some dropouts, there's some things that I probably added later on in the production, but really it's not a whole lot. I wanted to provide a lot of space for the vocals to kind of sit through. Let's talk about the lead vocal first because a lot of the stuff is kind of the same. Most things I use will be in multiple forms of, um, I guess, levels of compression and multiple levels of saturation and stuff. So you notice here, all of those vocals, by the way, were in a stack, right? So all of these, and I kind of used it to do my different parts of my verses and things together. I think there might be some background vocals and things in here, but you'll notice that there's processing on each one of these tracks. So a lot of times it'll start off with some sort of EQ, took out a whole lot of bottom end here. I probably should have switched over to this view a little bit earlier. So I took out a whole lot of bottom end here on this individual track. A little bit of the mids, it got a little bit stuffy for me. I recorded most of this stuff on actually the microphone that's in here. This is the AKG 414. I think this is the XLS. I have also a TLM 103, but that is set up in my little sort of studio upstairs that's in actually a closet, right? So I use that for a lot of my voiceover stuff. I don't like really moving it around. I think it fits my voice better, but this one just happens to live here in my studio. And this is called the Chaotica Eyeball, this little piece here. And that helps me to attenuate or get rid of some of the outside sounds. A lot of times what happens, since my studio here is in a garage, there are a lot of car sounds. There's a hot water heater over here, and that gets very loud sometimes. There's just extra noise happening. So between that and a program called Ozone, they make sort of a denoise kind of component. Sometimes that really saves some of my sounds. So back to this equalization, I took out a little bit of the stuffy sounds. I raised the shelf here just a little bit, 2.5 decibels, just to add a little bit of sparkle to my voice and things. First level of compression here, and notice that I turned up. The distortion. I'm compressing it only like around a 2-to-1 type of business. I'll let you see it work here.
About the fame lift, since we're the same lift.
So it's just slightly kissing it.
Lift. I am not pneumatic. Push the helium out of the attic. The jealousy was problematic, so I had to discharge the static shock. I look around at my brothers, saw all my sisters as mothers.
And then the second one is a FET. It's a FET compressor, and it's compressing a little bit more heavily, but also it's kind of hitting it quickly. So it's getting in and kind of getting off of it sort of quickly there. So, and once again, I have the distortion here turned up to kind of a soft distortion. Notice I am attenuating or bringing down the output. Once again, I have to be very specific with my gain staging because I don't want to be overloading the stereo, I guess you call it the 2 bus or the stereo bus at the end and things. So you'll notice I have very similar processing to a lot of these individual ones. Some of them I do have some overdrive. I happen to really like the aggressiveness of kind of like almost on edge, slightly overcooked sounds, right? It's like on the edge of being distorted. It's it's right on the cusp of being just sharp, But to me, that's where the flavor is. It's like when you grill something, you want that little crust, that burnt kind of flavor, but it's not exactly burnt. It just has a nice grill char to it. So I like that in sounds. It's right on the edge of insanity. So that's why I add saturation and distortion kind of slowly into stages and things. It's just a sound that I like. You'll notice some of the things are being bussed out to different places, but on all of those vocals, I have even more processing on kind of an upper level. So all of those vocals were kind of in a folder, and then that whole folder or that whole stack is being processed here. So all of that processing, I'm just cutting more of the lows. I have another level of compression. And then I have 2 levels of de-essing. And all that means is just getting rid of some of the s and the t, some of those kinds of sounds and things. I think both of these might be presets. There's a crying baby in the next room. I have 2 daughters. One is 13 at the moment, and the other one is 2. Anyway, so with those vocals, I'll play it kind of by itself here, and then I'll
So
add in
had to
the
discharge the
backgrounds.
static shock. I look around at my brothers, saw all my sisters as mothers. Lovers not just for the lovers. We all stuck with each other, smothered and covered. Lock. Seen you round town with a frown.
Yeah, and then once again, like when that seen you round, that thing comes in, it's like pushing towards the edge. It's almost like slightly pumping in its effect. It's just like trying to break through the wall there. For this next one, you hear some of the background, the O's going on. I'll solo this. Cool. So there's 2 ideas happening here. There's the I's and then there's the O's. And one of the reasons I like that kind of sound is it's not just kind of the same syllable. I think it adds a little bit of flavor for there to be 2 different sort of timbres of the same note happening at the same time. Timbre just means like the shape of the note, the color of it. So I just like it. I don't know of any other way. And you notice I have a lot of them kind of just stacked and kind of spread. So what I'll do is kind of start with one and I'll add it on here. I'm not even sure if there's a rhyme or reason as to how I placed these in order, but I'll just start with one and I'll add on. Even some I's in there. Some of them says ah, like AH. Some of them are saying I, and then some of them are just a O, like a OH. My first kind of low octave. Okay. And the rest of these are kind of just kind of filling in just multiple versions of each thing. And it seems like that's one of the main ones here. Notice that there's not processing on, I wouldn't think, almost any of these because I have them all in kind of a folder once again. You notice how they're all kind of here, but then I can collapse them into one folder. And that's what I did to add compression to it. So you see I'm kind of really pushing it, almost 5 at certain points. Adding a little bit of saturation here. Check out the equalization. Yeah, cutting off some of the lower end stuff. This will just muddy it up. I don't need crazy low like bass from a part like this. It'll just get in the way. And then I'm probably just kissing it, yeah, with just a little bit of kind of maybe a large plate. I believe that's what this is. It might even just be the default. It is. Yeah, it's the default one that I just bring up. It just adds a little bit of space, mainly to the tails once a note kind of cuts off with it. So that's what's happening there. When I'm coming up with these parts, a lot of times I'll just set it on this kind of cycle that I have. And I'll just record all of it into kind of one main stream. And I'll just keep doing it over and over. Oh, and I'll do it a whole time through, and I'll go, oh. And sometimes I'll try to go up another octave. And then I'll probably try to sing it on I. I'll try to sing it on Sometimes I'll add in other syllables, la, I'll try to do it on some haze, some ha's, and I'll go back and kind of see which ones blend well for me. And at that point, I'll start getting rid of some of the other ones. So most likely I would have recorded like 50 of those, just like 50 layers or 50 passes, right? And just all back to back. And I'll come in, so those that was like 3 octaves of the stuff. And I'll come in and maybe try to sing like a third or a fifth, or I'll come in and try to do some harmony above and below. And if the harmony gets too thick, once again, I'll come out and just start deleting stuff in the final stages and things. So this is the first time here that this kind of secondary kind of melody comes in.
Zero sum game, lift. It's not about the fame, lift.
We've already heard that in the O's and the A's in that background part. This is the first time it actually comes in here with another instrument. Cool. And this particular one is it's another sound from Alchemy. It's called Filthy. I'm not really sure if I would have changed any of these from that preset, but the sound is called After the Show. I really like this sound for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it speaks to me. And I've actually used it on a few of my productions in various places. So that's what's happening there. Some of these little background hits and vocal things are just like saying yeah and other types of stuff. I'll play a little bit of that for you.
Very, very.
Some skirts, some yeahs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. And those came from Curtis King Beats. He has a company called Slap Experts. I believe it's him and somebody else. But yeah, it's really cool sounds. I get a lot of my kick sounds from him. Definitely check him out and thanks. So that's pretty much the whole mix. There's a little bit of a pause kind of drop thing at the end. I'll play that for you. Yeah, and then I'll show you what's happening there. I have this cash register sound. It just came from Logic, this thing. I believe I did a slowdown on some of these. I changed up the kick pattern a little bit here. And then I automated it. So I just add the biggity biggity ball. It's like a 16th note triplet. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the automation on those. I'll make that a little bit bigger here. Cool. And I believe maybe for some of that slowdown stuff, I just went into the individual instruments and added a little bit of a fade at the end there. If you're interested in this song or any other songs from me, once again, my artist name is Morning Hawk. My album is called Morning Sun. You can check it out on Spotify, Apple Music, or really any other places that digital distribution happens. I am on YouTube. I'm on Instagram as Morning Hawk Music. So definitely check me out. And I thank you guys for joining me here today. I'll see you.